it's not like the parent is doing all the wrong things. It's not like the kid's doing all the wrong things. And there's no manual for each on how to be perfect. So, like,
Mhm.
having that empathy and bringing it to the table too is also really transformational because it's like we're just curious, we're just human, and we all have flaws, and we're just trying to be better.
Thank you for joining me for my 100th episode of the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Whether you are a veteran listener or are just finding me, I'm so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please rate and review if you have not already done so. Welcome to today's episode of the Positively Healthy Mom. I'm your host, Laura Olinger, teen and young adult well-being coach and founder of Positively Healthy Coaching. Today, I am super duper excited to introduce you to my guest, Sonia Suthar, who she and I have so many crazy connections. We met in person last summer at a Tony Robbins Leadership Camp for Teens, Global Youth Leadership Conference. And I've just met her through lots of friends. So Sonia, I'm so excited you're here on the podcast. You happen to be in Austin, Texas as well. So local, kind of just right down the road there. So welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really want to start off. I would love for you to talk about your TED Talk because you are a published TEDx speaker. And I'd love for you to just kind of give us the highlights, like how that came about.
Yeah, totally. So I was starting my business last year in senior year, and I really wanted to get my name out there. And my business was around teaching life skills and also helping parents understand how to connect with their teens. And so, one person who was one of my mentors was like, well, one of the best ways to do it is to do a TEDx. And I love speaking. So, this was like, okay, this makes total sense. And so I was researching and looking at how to apply to a TEDx, trying to figure out like which ones are the best ones, should I travel for one? And at the same time, I didn't even know that this was working, but my school decided to host at TEDx. And so it was like perfect timing, great alignment. And I essentially applied to my school's application, got approved by all the external people who were approving to speak on the TEDx stage, and ended up doing it. And it was a lot of work. I had to like create the TEDx speech, but then I also like the biggest trouble was like memorizing it and then also
Mm.
cutting it down so it was like 15 minutes because at first it was like 20 minutes long and it could have been longer.
Wow. So, yes, I admire TEDx speakers so much because I know how much work and preparation goes into that. I have a good friend that just did one, and man, it literally took like 6 months. So amazing. And what I didn't say in the introduction is that you are 19 years old. So to have that accomplishment just blows my mind. So I'm super impressed. And so you have this business, you have a passion for helping parents understand what it's like to be a teenager, how to be better parents, how to have better connection, more alignment. And so, tell us a little bit about your business. Like, what happens when someone goes on your website, and what do they learn?
Yeah, so Cloud9 is essentially setting teens up for lifelong success and fulfillment. And we do this by teaching life skills, providing them with a community, and then giving them real opportunities. How this works is these teens go through this process where they have twice a month they have live group coaching sessions online.
Mhm.
And this is essentially either me or a guest speaker will be teaching a different life skill. It ranges from leadership, entrepreneurship skills, and emotional intelligence. So the one that I'm doing this weekend is about how to talk to anyone, which is like a great skill to just have so you're not afraid. And
Yeah.
we start by talking about like the myths. Okay, so like for how to talk to anyone, most people think that you have to be the smartest or say all the right things, but that's
Mhm.
not actually the truth. You just have to be the most interested and ask the right questions. And so we go into these like first like myths, so we make sure that the teens are approaching it and reframing it in the right way. And then from there you like learn different frameworks that are easy to learn, and then
Mhm.
also we'll send you a flyer after about what it is because it's hard to remember sometimes, and then we'll go
Yeah.
through takeaways. And so you have that twice a month, but then the beautiful part about Cloud9 is you have a community. You have other teens you can talk to and connect with because that's something that a lot of parents desire is like them knowing that their teens are surrounded by healthy influences.
Mhm.
And so we do that. And then on the parent side, because if you teach the teen something, you also want to help make sure that the parents are being able to support their teen. So we have Q&A sessions once a month where me and a parent coach are going to go through 10 to 20 minutes of different exercises, and then parents can ask as many questions as they want to really make sure that they understand the content, and then they can also ask questions to make sure that they're connecting with their teen in the best
Mm,
way. And so
yes.
that's what Night is.
I love it. I love it. And so, was this born out of the story that you told in your TEDx talk? Like that kind of connection piece? Is that where you got the idea, or did it come from something else?
Yeah, so funny story actually, it started at the beginning of high school, practically probably sophomore year.
Okay.
My dad asks me these questions, and you'll probably recognize the Ikigai framework from it, but it's like, what do you love to do? And I love to teach, I love to travel, I love my friends, and then what are you good at? And I was really good at teaching, and I also learned life skills from a very young age, so I had that in my toolbox already.
Mm,
And then what does the world need? And the world needs teens who understand life skills and who are able to apply them.
mhm,
And like that's where the opportunities come into base. Investors and startups are able to give these kids opportunities so they can do things with the life skills that they learn.
mhm, mhm,
And so that's kind of where it started of like, okay, this is how it's going to be. Every 3 months, you're going to be able to travel with your best friends, go to crazy places. Guest speakers are going to teach you life skills in the morning. And then in afternoons, you're going to go bungee jumping, skydiving, things that get you out of your comfort zone. Crazy things like that. And I was super excited. But after working on it for a while, I realized that doing online workshops helps build that credibility and makes it more scalable. So then we could do these in person events eventually.
mm. Yeah.
And then this past year, when I went to Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny,
Mhm,
I stood up and I was talking about my relationship with my dad for a minute. And parents and teens came up to me after this and they were like, I felt that way. Like, thanks for sharing your story. Like, I felt so disconnected. And like, I appreciate that you brought light to that. And that helped bring to light the big problem that parents are struggling with this and teens are struggling with this. And so adding that piece to Cloud9 really makes it kind of like a all-in-one system of this global movement that we're helping teens, but we're also supporting parents at the same time.
yeah, yes. So, what would you say is the number one life skill that teens struggle with the most?
I think it stems from emotional intelligence, like
Mhm,
being able to understand who you are, right?
mm, mhm,
How do you know which emotions are triggered by what happens in the world, what your parents do, what your siblings do, and then you're able to manage it?
mhm,
Just knowing your identity, like what you want and your values, and then understanding like why you make decisions that are because of these values is so important, just fundamentally for anyone.
mhm, mhm. Yes, I actually completely agree. It's something that a lot of adults struggle with as well, is just having that emotional intelligence and that self-awareness to understand why they're feeling a certain way, why their thoughts are a certain way, and then the skill is then how to change it. Like it's one thing to observe, right? And then it's the next thing, it's like, well, then what do you do with that? So what an amazing life skill to teach and helping future generations, because that just, I mean, we could probably go on and on with if every single person in the whole entire world had that skill, what a different world we'd be living in, right? But I love it. So, what else can you share with us about your experiences? Like, for example, do you have any cool stories of a client that you've really helped or someone that you've seen overcome a huge challenge?
Yeah, so when I did my first in-person retreat when I was testing the Cloud9 in-person retreats,
Mhm.
we did a ropes course. And that was super fun because like one of the students got over their like fear of heights because they were supported by everyone else, like four other teens who were there watching them and like cheering for them. And like we were just like super excited and celebrating every single time. Like we hit a different milestone.
Mhm.
And so that was really cool. And then doing my past workshop 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of all or each student that I got feedback from, because I really want to get feedback from each student when I'm doing these workshops so
Yeah.
it can be as good as possible. They were really enjoying when I went off the cuff and I was talking about the 60-30-10 rule where 60% of people are going to like you, they're going to want to be friends with you. 30% of people are going to be indifferent, and then 10% of people are just not gonna like you. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, they're just not gonna like you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when I talked about this, like, the teens were telling me afterwards, and they were like, "That was really helpful because it helped it detach from needing everyone to like you." And it
Mm.
helped them realize that, like, the people who like you are already gonna like you, and you don't need to perform for them.
Mhm. That's huge. I love that. I love that. Okay, so tell us more about the parenting part. Like, because the audience here is moms of teens, and so what do you want to say to them today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would wanna say is ask questions and really be curious about your teen, and this is something that I helped and talked to my mom about too, because she was really good about, like, asking questions, but then she also really wanted to help fix everything,
Mhm.
and that's where I would d get overwhelmed. I was like, "Well, I'm venting to you, and I'm being, like, true and honest and vulnerable with you, and now you're trying to fix me," and that's just, like, it brought a lot of tension and conflict, and so more so having the ability to ask the questions and then also knowing, and you may not know, but, like, knowing when you should just be there to listen. And
Mhm.
so I talk about this in my TED Talk of, like, one of the best practices is asking the question of the 3 H's. Do you wanna be heard, helped, or held? And it's so easy because then you know exactly how to support your teen in the way that they need it the most. And then they also learn how to reflect on, like, how do I need this support? And over time, when they have their own relationships, when they have people that they're like romantically involved with, and they're gonna be like, I need you to just listen to me. And
Mhm.
that's gonna make it so much healthier when they're in these different relationships, not just with you, but you're helping them, you're helping set them up for
Mm.
success.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I like that you have a third option there because I generally teach teens and parents. Do you just, it's kind of the choice. Do you want to just vent or do you need help? And so it's like venting, they just blah, can say whatever they want. The parent is not allowed to give any feedback whatsoever other than to validate the feelings or to just acknowledge the situation or the struggle, whatever it is. And then, the help, that's again asking questions. But I love the help part too. I think that's so sweet because there are times maybe your teen has literally just a broken heart and they need to be held or they're devastated like they've gotten some really bad news or their friend is in trouble and they just need to be held. So I think that's so beautiful and so sweet. I'm glad you have that third option coming from the heart of a teen who knows what you need. So oh wow, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
And then what do you think I know you described it in your TED talk, but I loved what you said. Like, talk a little bit more about that feeling that you get when your mom, in the past was like fixing you or helping you because what I imagined when you described that just now is like you said I'm being vulnerable, but then I'm getting fixed and so it almost feels like a trap. Like the parents want we want our kids to open up except then when they're sharing something really really deep and you just jump in there like what tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So it's like, well, one thing, and this is like really transformational to just like understand, because like when I heard this, I was like, whoa. Um, Teens from the ages of 10 to 25, and David Yeager talks about this in his book, want status and respect. And they also want autonomy. And so understanding that fundamental thing, when you immediately try to fix a teen, first of all, their identity is threatened. They're like, "You don't think I'm good enough to figure this out on my own," or like,
Mhm.
"You're not listening to me." And vulnerability is something that should be a strength. But when you don't allow them to be vulnerable and you don't hold the space,
Yeah.
like, learning how to hold space is, it's kind of a ambiguous word, but, like, for me, holding space just means, like, being there and saying, like, "I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. Tell me what you need." But I'm also not gonna, like, be like, "Here's what you should do," or "You
Mhm.
remember this, like, you should know this," or things like that. Because then you're just being there, and then eventually they'll talk to you if they want to, or they'll ask for advice, but when they're ready for that advice, it's so much better because then they're actually gonna listen to you, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like, you don't want advice when you're, like, venting to your partner, but he's gonna, like, give you advice unless you tell him not to, but he's just doing it out of love, and it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. And then, there's kind of like the repercussions, like for the moms who struggle with this, who struggle with holding space, who don't even know what that means. Like, I love that. And to me, it's just like about allowing your teen's emotions to be the most important thing in the room. It's not about your emotions at the time. It's not about your reactions or what your thoughts are. It's about them and kind of prioritizing them. So kind of allowing that to fill the room and holding that space for their emotions. And I've seen parents in with my clients where the parent struggles to even let their teen finish a sentence. And I'm thinking, whoa, talk about not holding space. That's the opposite of holding space. It's like you're literally cutting them
Mhm.
off. And so sometimes with parents who really struggle with that, it might be like baby steps. Like first, you know, there's the expression practice the pause, right? Like first just take a pause, right? If that's as good as you can do at the moment, start there, right? Start with the pause and then maybe work your way up to like holding a little bit more space, a little bit more time, a little bit of more of everything, allowing them for them to come forward before you respond, react, anything like that. And just listen. Like that's such an underrated skill is the listening part. And so it's like, oh my gosh, it's like parents don't think, "Oh, wow, I need to be a better listener." I don't think that they do, but, like, if we could make all parents better listeners, think how much happier a lot of our teenagers would be. They're like, "Wow, my mom really listens to me. My dad really listens to me." And that just opens the door to make the teen wanna talk more because 'cause they're like, "I feel heard," right? Just a quick pause in this episode to tell you about a free live webinar I'm hosting on April 30th at noon Central Time just for moms. It's called Get Through May Without Losing Your Joy, Your Mind, or Yourself. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Sign up at positivelyhealthycoaching.com. The link is at the top. It's completely free. See you there.
Totally, I totally agree, and it's listening when you're actively listening, right? Your
Mm.
phone's down, you're looking at them, and you're just there, and then you're asking follow-up questions too, right? Follow-up questions are great, like, even if you're talking to your friend, like, you want your friend to be asking follow-up questions of, like, "How was your day?" Because then it's even more engaging for you, and so, like, talking to your teen, listening to them, asking those follow-up questions, nodding to them when you like, showing that you understand, like, showing that body language of, like, you're here, you're present, you're there for them,
Mhm.
and kids will feel so validated and so loved and feel like they belong with you just because you're there.
Mm.
And that's so transformational. It's like you sit down at the dinner table and you give them eye contact. It's like even if you're like looking outside the window, it's a different type of relationship instead of like actually looking at them, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's so powerful, right? And the thing that I was thinking of when you were talking was like, there was that movement for a while of like toxic positivity, where that's kind of part of that fix it mentality, which is like, oh, stop stressing, you're overreacting, like you're not, it's everything's fine, you're gonna be fine, or oh, you're not looking on the bright side, right? Like that's like a lot of parents were trying to like shove down their kids' throats, like look on the bright side, stop being so pessimistic, all these things, right? But if like we could, I think today, like I love collaborating with you on just this idea of like, what if it's just like a neutral? Again, that it's the same idea as not having to fix it, but like if your teen is having a negative emotion, you trying to force positivity on it is just kind of what they call like an emotional bypass. Like you're actually skipping the process where they can allow that emotion to, they say feel it to heal it. You have to feel it to heal it. Like allow them the moment and the ability to feel their emotion, and then it'll pass and they'll be able to like usually solve that on their own or like allow it to, sometimes I like to say like digest or marinate on its own. It'll pass through and without trying to you to shift the emotion. Even like a kind of aside from like practical logistical fixing, but just like not needing to change anything about the emotion or the situation and allowing the teen to kind of do the work for themselves. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. And it also reminded me of coexisting emotions, right?
Mm.
Of you have that really like angry or sad emotion and your teen is sitting with it, but then also realizing that they also have different emotions of like happiness. And like when you say that you love them and you say that you're here for them, then they're able to sit with both that loving emotion and then they're also able to sit with that like sad emotion. And so that like duality of both that they could sit with also helps with that, like, toxic positivity of, like, you don't always have to be happy.
Right.
It's good to just be still and to just, like, allow that emotion, feel it, but also know that you're loved, like and something that, like, is really comforting for me to hear is, like, everything is temporary. everything in life is
Mhm.
temporary. And so, like, your emotions are temporary, your thoughts are temporary, this stage of life is temporary. And so, validating it, being present in it, and allowing you to actually experience it, like, goes really far.
Wow. This is great. I love the depth of this conversation. It's amazing. So, um let's kind of shift a little bit back to your business. How are you able to, get this information across to parents so that they truly like absorb it and then not just absorb it, but start practicing the things that you're teaching them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I guess the first thing is, like, to get it across to parents, the first thing is, like, do you have a growth mindset? And, like, helping
Mm.
create that growth mindset in the parents, right?
Yeah.
Because that's something we also do in the teens of, like, well, Cloud9 has a growth mindset because we always want to improve and we always
Mhm.
want feedback, right? It's not a fixed business. Something that we want to improve with the parents is, like, having that growth mindset of, like, we're approaching this of the stage of we want to get better. We want to learn, but we're also not demonizing one side, right? One side's not the victim, one side's not the person who does it because it's not like the parent is doing all the wrong things. It's not like the kid's doing all the wrong things. And there's no manual for each on how to be perfect. So, like,
Mhm.
having that empathy and bringing it to the table too is also really transformational because it's like we're just curious, we're just human, and we all have flaws, and we're just trying to be better and be more intentional.
Mhm.
And that was something that I had to learn with my parents too, of like graduating and getting out of the house really allowed me to have that space so I could find grace in my parents and find that, like, love of knowing that their intention is completely pure and everything that they're trying to do is with love.
I bet you there's so many moms that need to hear that right now to like hear that that you were able to have that reflection, like to have that awareness, like, oh my gosh, my mom's really just trying her best. Cause a lot of times I think moms they don't necessarily feel that from their kids, but that's for another show. But I love what you're saying
Mhm.
about that growth mindset because that's where I kind of like run into struggles with parents where I have a client who's a teenager. We're doing some amazing work and then I ask to get on a call with the parents and the parents are like, "No, don't want to hear it," right? Because sometimes and I think every family is obviously a little bit different. Parents who have little kids are typically open to feedback, like, I mean, preschool, young elementary, right? Because they're like, "How do I manage this?" What I have found, and maybe this is my own lack of growth mindset, but what I have found is a lot of the parents who by the time they're teenagers it's kind of like, "Here, fix my teen," but I'm doing everything I can do. Like, they don't think that there's room for change or opportunity or growth on their end. They think the problem solely lies with the teenager, and so that's where I've been, kind of running into some walls. By the way, anybody listening today, if you listen to podcasts that, is all that is growth mindset. That's why people listen to it, entertainment, but to learn, right? And so
Mhm.
I think that's just, like, why I was curious, like, how are you approaching these people? And it's like you kind of need their buy-in, like, they need to be on board with the idea that there is possibility for them improving the way that they're connecting and communicating with their teenager. Do you have any other stories or feedback of that where, like, it was, like, a parent who was just like, "No, not my problem," or one that was like, "Yes, tell me everything, please, I need help."
Yeah, no, totally. So that's why our business model, and I was like trying to figure this out, like, literally today I was talking to my mentor. And this also helps reaffirm that, like, having these two sessions with the teens, but also having it with the parents, like bundling that together
Mhm,
is so good because then it's not just the teen who's improving, but the parents also learning how to support their teen. So you see double the amount of growth, right?
mhm,
And I
mhm,
totally agree, like, it's definitely hard. I also do think it'd be interesting with your coaching people because, like, the younger ones with the younger children can't really be coached, so the parent has to be coached, so maybe they're in the growth mindset because of that. And then the teens, since they're old enough to be coached, then their parents are like, "Hands off, like, you can deal with my child, I guess."
Yes, you know what? That's probably a good point of why parents don't love to be coached because they're like, here, they're old enough, they can handle this on their own. But yeah, I completely agree. And so I've had so many parents where I require that they communicate with me, that we talk and that we have these, times together. And it's just interesting how some of them, I have to be really gentle with my wording because some of them they start to get defensive. They start to feel like an attack, and so I have to back up, and I'm like, "Look, this is nothing. This is just a normal, like, I see this all the time with so many families. Like, it's not you personally, it's just like this is the kind of developmental stage that we're at, and, like, all of us parents can, maybe learn from what teenagers are going through these days because it's different from how we were raised. Times have changed, and so usually they get on board, but there's been times where I've had some that are just like, they don't want it to be about them. They just want it to be complaining about their teen. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not what we're doing here. I have to really like kind of bring them back in. I have to kind of regroup and I'm like, okay, here's what I have to kind of sometimes really take control of the situation. So that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anything that you feel like we didn't cover? I mean, I know we could go on and on forever, but like that you think is really important for the moms to hear today.
I would just say that out of everything that we've talked about, since we've talked about a bunch of things,
Mhm.
if you could take one tool of that you could input into your life, that would be like
Yeah.
a success. That would be a success of this podcast episode.
Awesome. I completely agree. That's amazing. Okay. Sonia, how can people find you?
Yes, so people can find me on Instagram at cloud9go, the number 9, and then on the web, cloud9go.com, same thing, number 9.
Very cool. Okay. I'm sure we'll be sending lots of people your way. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. I enjoyed.
Thanks.
When you get a chance, please go to the show notes and click on the link ratethispodcast.com/tphmom to give my podcast a rating and review. And if this episode resonates with you, be sure to share it with your mom friends who are going through the same things. Be sure to tune in for next week's conversation. Until then, keep up the good work.